Record. All right, so we left off last time partway through setting up the backend node, and I put the question out here about Nest.js, and yeah, I really do like Nest.js for the TypeScript capacity, but I'm not going to stress on that at this point. I mean, we can rebuild the backend later on if we need to. I'm not worried about that. But we left off at the point that I realized that I have no MySQL running on my machine to connect to, right? So that's a pretty easy fix. I'm looking at the MySQL webpage. In fact, I had drilled into installing on a Mac since I'm running on a Mac. So I got to find the native packages, and I did verify on the native packages that oh, that's the wrong page. I did verify on the, here we go, versions. There we go. Well, that's interesting. The first time I clicked on that, I got something different.
Catalan's having some audio issues.
Okay.
He said in the chat.
Yep. I will post a link here in a few minutes. So for the attendance and stuff. So we're gonna oh, here it is. This is what I wanted, the community version. Hide that link for the Mac. So I don't need the supported platforms. What I need is this one, which it does work on Monterey, which is what I'm using. I'm not ARM, I'm 64-bit x86. So I'm gonna download that one. Oh, lovely. Log in or sign up. Lordy, I couldn't tell you the last time I logged in or signed up over there. So we're gonna just start the download. And let's put that in downloads, save. And that won't take long. Okay, so we don't need that page anymore. So we need to come back to this page, and I do need to pay attention. So when we get down to, it's like the final step. If you look at one of the final steps in here, it's probably around summary there, somewhere in there. You get a window with your temporary password for the admin. So I need to make sure that that's not on the screen. Otherwise, I got to go put something over it in the record, and I really don't want to do that. If I can avoid it, almost there. Yeah, I probably don't need to walk through the steps on how to install it, but we'll get to see it. It'll be part of the record. Other than that, hopefully that very last step, I stop it at the right place. I'm going to show Finder. Click. Okay. Oh, there it goes. And where to go? It's behind everything now. So the piece that I want, yep, is back there now. Okay. So double click. This should pop up a warning somewhere, sometime, eventually. Verifying. Good. From unidentified, yeah. We're moving real fast here. In fact, I can move this off the screen while that starts up. And close that out. Keep that running. Why are we taking so long to start it? Try that again. Verifying. Yeah. There we go. Cannot verify. Overriding system security. Okay. Open. There we go. Jeez. Allow. Here we go. All right. So documentation. Blah blah blah. License. Blah blah blah. Yes, I agree to the license. 800 meg. Wow, that's big. Changed. That's much bigger than it used to be. Don't care where it installs. Installation. We move that off the screen. All right. Passwords in. I was told to use the MySQL 8 support for the SHA. I'm gonna move it off the screen for the moment and click next. If it's something you can see, I'll bring it back. Okay, enter a password for the root user. Reasonable password consists of blah. Okay. Hang on 1 second. I'm gonna open VS Code. I'm gonna bring it over here, and I'm gonna create a temporary file that I can put this into. And let's see what that does with that password. And good, you can't see it. That's what I was hoping for. And I'm going to reopen my. Uh-oh, nice. Okay, so put that right as the title of the document. Which doesn't work for putting it in front of you guys, right? There we go. So the file's there, but you're not going to see what it is because I'm not going to show you what it is. And that's the installation guide. That's the Twitter. And what we needed is actually right here, still running. Finish. So start when complete. Man, and it needs my password again. It doesn't show it, but I'm paranoid that way. And it's got the password. There we go. Summary. Okay, thank you for installing. Do you want to remove it? Yes, we can move it to the trash. Cool. Now we get to see what's happening with the installer/runner. So we should have it installed. So we should be down somewhere about done that. We've done that. Now installed, not loaded by default. Either use launch control from the command line or MySQL by clicking on start. Start MySQL, clicking on start using the MySQL preference pane. That's handy. I don't have a MySQL preference pane that I know of at the moment. Yeah, looking through my tools, making sure it's not hiding in there somewhere. So let's take a peek at that. See what that is. I haven't run MySQL on a Mac, so this is new to me. All right, while I'm thinking of it and you guys are here, I'm going to click the button for the attendance stuff and installing the preference pane. Okay, so let me go look and see if it shows up in my system preferences. Oh, it's there. Hey, look at that. We have an active instance of MySQL. It has no database. And we have an installed instance. I suppose you can see this. See, it's running. Okay. And then we have this thing for initializing the database and that kind of stuff. So we do have a database now. That's running. It showed up down there. Yep. Which, look at that, go through all the steps to put that in. So it's already started running. So we should be good to go. I'm going to leave that open at the moment. And let's close this. Oops, there we go. Oh, no, I don't want notes. There. And then I'm going to bring up the VS Code. Again, that's not the VS Code. I know I don't need a new note. Yeah. It closed down my VS Code. There it is. All right. So let's take a quick peek at what we have in here. Okay, so we have host, localhost, user root. We have a password. And I guess I have to give the password out since I got to put it in over there, right? Although we should be able to create a new user and that kind of stuff on it too. But it should be on localhost 3306, right? If it's up and running, I think. Been a long time since I've done this. Page is not working. Okay, so it's not on localhost 3306. So somewhere it wasn't that one. That's the directory where everything ends up. Okay, so we've got it installed. Now we need to Post installation setup and test. Let's take a look at that. Okay. We'll jump out of there and there. And let's come into here. Initializing the data directory, starting the server, testing the server. We have an installed server. And make sure it can be accessed. So starting the server, testing the server. Let's open those two real quick. And it is starting it from the command line. But it says it's already started. Right? That's what I'm saying right there. We don't have a database, but it should be started. Starting for the first time, that's for Windows. Testing the server, which is our next one. And okay, so he's running this from I'll be honest, it's been a long time, so we're going to be digging through some documentation here. A little bit. Okay. And I don't think that's a straight terminal, but let me bring up the terminal. There's something different we have to do with the terminal. And yeah, no such file director. That's what I expected. All right, so that's what I figured I was going to see. Okay. Don't care about that. Installing, we've installed. Okay, so let's go to this data directory real quick and see, because here he's moving into user local MySQL. Where am I? Okay, so I'm at root. All right, so okay, so I can get to that folder. So user local, and we have a MySQL folder already in there. We don't have to change. We shouldn't have to change ownership or anything like that. Use the server initialized in a data directory, which we shouldn't have to do. It should already be there. So this should be the core of what we need to run it. It should already be initialized. Just hit that terminal. There we go. Put it where I can get to it. Export connections. So we're already doing that. We've already done the initialization. So we need to don't care about that. Don't care about that. This is initialization stuff. Let's see. Server creates a root local host, super user, which, okay, I should have a password for that one. There. Connect to the server. This is what we need to see. Should be started up. So we should have a MySQL command in here. Command not found. It's another folder. It looks pretty similar, doesn't it? And what's he's running? He's just running MySQL from that. Man, not found MySQL. All right, so let's just go back a step. Okay. Just take it really simple. Easy fix, 3 steps. Okay, I like 3 steps. They're probably wrong, but you know. Check if it's installed. All right. That's usually a good thing, right? Not found. So we don't have a MySQL binary. Install it if it's not installed. If MySQL is not installed, you need to install resolve MySQL, blah, 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 blah. That's Ubuntu. Don't need Ubuntu. Well, could theoretically work. Red Hat. Hmm. Okay, so the Ubuntu one's not gonna work. I don't think that one's gonna work either. All right, so we need to take this back a step and on Mac. I don't care which OS X. Let's see what do we get. Command not found. Problems with your path. Path is where, yeah. So let's see. Oh, all right, let's try it. It might already be here, so give me 1 second. Because I went into the bin the first time, but I didn't actually look to see what's in there. And there is MySQL in there. But it was treating it like, nope, it's not a directory, so it is there. Okay, so let's try Catalan's version, which is the brew install. Oh, that got busy real fast, didn't it? So the base directory, I'm looking at the settings over here while that's running. Base directory user local MySQL. So it might be user local MySQL, not user. I think I'm 1 level too far down. I might have used local. Then data, then plugin, then keyring, error log, PID file. So the only thing I don't have is a configuration file, which I'm not worried about that at the moment. And why are we still? We don't. Okay. It's trying to do something. Good. Running brew update auto update. So it's auto updating brew or auto updating MySQL, which tells me MySQL's here. We're just not able to start it. It's taking way longer than it should. Yeah, we are in local. Okay. What is going on? Let's see, that's exactly what we're getting. Visual guide to installing MySQL on the Mac. Yep, it's already installed. We might have to add the path to ZSHRC. All right, so let's try that. Haven't used Nano in a while, but that's nice. I have Nano installed. And that was not Nano. I have the following line at the end. Needs my cursor's there, which means I'm going to go do this manually. So there's the MVM. So we need export path. Would be the right path. Except he's using the specific Mac version. And I need to, I had that in the terminal earlier. That one. That's what we need. 8032 Mac OS 13 x86. I don't know if I'm going to be able to copy paste that, so let me write that down. Okay, got it. I'm going to see if I can copy it. I don't think I can now. I know I can copy it, but I don't think I can paste it in this editor. Whoa, maybe I can. Okay, didn't expect that. All right, so Control X, yes. Enter. Okay, so that's added. Restart the terminal or source. Better. That's an error message we expected. Okay, good. We got it. We now have MySQL. There we go. And a terminal. And let's do this so we can see things. And bring this over here. And so if we just do a MySQL version, getting correct commands now. Okay. Connect the server as root, password prompt. Okay, so MySQL -u root p, and the password. I guess it really doesn't matter if you guys see the password. It's a really strong password. I'll change it. And all right, we're in MySQL. Okay. We could skip the password, don't care about that. We can alter, don't care about that. So we can create a new root user and that kind of stuff. No big deal. Nothing big there. Okay, so we've now started the server. Let's test our server. Okay, and so we're logged in. And I was using MySQL admin instead of MySQL, which we might have to change direction. We don't need to shut down. Oh, so these are various commands that run in there. All right, so yeah, there's not much more we can do here, I don't think, at the moment. So basic commands. Okay, we clear the current input, we can connect, edit, exit, go, help. Okay, so basic stuff, nothing exciting. But it tells me it's up and running. It tells me we're connected to it. We don't need to upgrade or downgrade. We do need to know some of our environment variables, because it should be accessible via a port, which is back in our original notes. Localhost. We need to change our password, right? Except we don't have a root account at the moment. Let's go back here real quick. Host installation. Initializing data directory, don't care about that. We already did that. Starting the server, that's already started. Testing the server. MySQL admin verify it's running, but I don't know that we need to do that. So we are logged in as root. That's our password. We don't have a database yet, so it shouldn't matter there. This is just an initial setup and it might not be right. So let's go back over here and let's take a look at this. This is our initial setup, how we had originally set things up. Okay, so cores localhost for the port, that's for the server port, not for our database. Okay, DB is using Modal, which is this index, which configures the host and all that that's coming out of here. And so that's where it's setting up the models and the roles and all of that, which we could do an initial init, but I'm not going to worry about that yet. So this should be able to connect to that database in theory. We're going to find out. Don't know what it's going to do. And what do we have? We had npm run dev. npm not found. Why do we not have npm?
That's weird.
Well, yeah, I'm wondering if there was another command in that. All right, I want to add, let's do one other thing first before we go dig into that one. Install not nano p. There we go. That's weird. That looks really strange. Word. I've never heard it. Sudo's not found. What is something's off here? So something is really dorked up. Let's find out what it is. Oh, that's not good. My guess is when we installed, we overwrote the pathing completely. When we modified that ZSH file, that there was pathing up above that we didn't see. So let's see if we can get to it here. Man, that's gonna be a pain to get to. I have to go. All right, so there's the Mac. And I need to see hidden folders. Well, that wasn't what I wanted. All right, let's do it this way. All right, so what I need to see the hidden files and folders. I don't use that command often enough. Command shift, that's what it was. Okay. There we go. ZSH, which is in, I don't know where that is. So it was the tilde slash dot ZSH. So it's going to be in one of these. Maybe. What's my name? I mean, those aren't ones I'm looking for. The internet connection is unstable. That's not good. I'm breaking everything now. You tell I don't do this a lot. Let's see. I'll try something else here. Mac. I want to do it. There we go. Where is that file? No, that's not it. It's not finding hidden files. We've killed my ZSHRC file, so that's where the problem is at the moment. All right, so let's cancel. I wonder if I can do a different terminal that's non-ZSH. If I do so bash terminal. So all right, so let's go back to our, they're going to let me do the sudo. There we go. Yeah, I didn't think that was a command. Never heard of that one before. What? Sudo install nano. Oh, Make a type brew. Okay, we're doing something. And this is the one that took like forever last time and just kind of stopped on us. And then we got to get into the ZSH file and fix that, and then we should be able to spin this up and test it.
I think there was a few commands after this.
What do you mean?
Let me go check real quick.
You mean to install brew? Well, I'm running something real fast. That's good.
Oh, you're installing brew. I forgot we had fallen
No.
back a
No.
step.
I'm installing Nano so that I can correctly edit the. I'll have to switch my base editor. It's using VI from the editor, and there are people that love it. I'm not one of those people. There we go. There we go. Nano. Hey, so here's part of the problem. We have this export path. Export ZSH. And I think part of what we have is the problem is we have the path didn't include the previous path correctly. So when we got down to that last line that we added in, we wrote a whole new path, overwriting. And if we look, $home / bin : $path. And I think, I'm wondering if that's all we had to fix. And then what was the other command? I wonder if it's no, I can't pick that up. That's in the other terminal. Where'd my terminal go? It's hiding behind here. There. Source. Now, that should change it for both. C. It can't be loaded from mbash. You need to run ZSH instead. Okay, so I can't run from here. I run it from here. I think my ZSH might be completely boggled. What do we have? We have oops. Okay, so we can access MySQL from here if need be. Let's try to open a new ZSH because that should reload that file. Okay, so our commands are working again. MySQL is working again. Yes. Okay. From one error to the next, right? Our errors are different. All right, so this sequelize is causing a problem. Server running on 4001. So it says the server's running. And somewhere in here, it's throwing a SQL error, unknown database test DB, which is true because we have no databases, right? We know that. All right, so we're a step closer. It didn't fail because it couldn't find MySQL. So initialize database, enter password for the database root user. All right. We're going to use the same one. I'm going to be lazy. It's only on my machine. Nobody else is getting into it right now. Okay. You can't see that anyway, so it doesn't matter. Not sure what that did. Creates a new data directory for the selected MySQL instance. Data directory already exists. It'll be deleted. Okay. So that's just a reset of the whole database itself. So here's our data directory. Where'd my terminal go? I closed my terminal now. That's what happened. So let's bring the terminal back up. And password. Cannot connect to local MySQL server through socket. Well, that's interesting. Huh. I just realized when I looked on the other side that the SQL server said start SQL server. These little guys were red. So if it's not running, kind of hard to connect to it, right? So now we're in the MySQL admin. All right, so can we list the databases, right? DB and host, go. This is a rough way of doing it. All right, so let's try something else. I'll go a slightly different direction. We can do all this. I'm not too stressed about setting the tables up, but doing it via the command line seems like a really dumb way to do it. So how can we install a MySQL admin page? Workbench. That's new to me. I don't know what the workbench is. Let's take a quick peek, see if that's what I'm thinking of. Yes. So how do we add the workbench on a PC? Sorry, Mac. 10 minutes left to install. Well, that looks easy. On a Mac OS, 64-bit. Download. Oh, thank you. I'll put it in the download folder. Fine. No, not nearly as big as the last one. Get there. Going as fast as it, my internet will go. All right, so we got it here off the screen. I'm just right-clicking opening at the moment. I'm going to drag this over and drag that to that. Oh, well, that was weird. Applications. All right. Copying. Copy paste. I know they like to make it easy to install stuff, but copy paste makes me nervous for installation of major packages like this. My hope is it just sees that we have one here and it lets us get in and manage and do all the cool little things we want to do. In my luck, it won't, but let's find out. Didn't have much other in the way of help, so here we go. Open. You look at that. Local instance. See, I told you it was 3306. Should still have that password. Let's save the password in the keychain. So if you ever steal my Mac, you have it. Right? So what do we have? Oh, we can query it. We have administration. We have schemas. Server status. We're up. We can now do things. Awesome. Not that we have much here we could do with at the moment. We need to see the admin status. So we need to build a query to create a table, to create a database, to create a table, and do all that. And you guys haven't worked with MySQL before, right? You haven't worked with SQL before. So let's just take the last 8 minutes. Database. Let's just take a quick peek, okay? Creating and selecting a database, all right? Create database, hey. That sounds good, but I don't really like menagerie, right? And so what are we going to call our database? So our database is going to be something along the lines of, because that's the one I remember, right? And we'll put a semicolon after it. Now, typically, when you're going to run a command in MySQL, select what you're going to run. Most terminals, and I'm assuming theirs is smart enough to do it the same way as when you execute a command, that it only executes what you've selected. So you could have a whole series of them and just select that row you want and run it. Just out of habit, I do that with all of them. Okay. So I'm assuming the lightning bolt would be execute. Execute the selected portion of the script or everything if there's no selection. Okay. That's a pretty common pattern in executing commands. So we're going to create a database. All right. And action, it did something. All right. And so we should be able to see that we have a database somewhere in here. I'm not sure where in this that would be. Let's look at our server status and see if it has any new information on it. Do we have anything on SSL, PAMS, socket port version? Yeah, so this really isn't telling us much of anything in terms of like the number of tables or anything like that. So let's see how we go databases. Well, that seems right. We do have this schema thing, which here we go, tables. Views, stored procedures. But that's in sys. We don't want to do sys. So let's see. What was that command again? That was show databases. Whoa. Not quite sure what just happened. Okay. Oh, I literally don't know where it went. I think we crashed it. MySQL Workbench quit unexpectedly. Okay, we just reopened, so let's go back in here. And apparently I didn't like that show databases command at all.
Wow. It's not crashing for me, but I see it's
Are you seeing your databases?
yes, it has like a results grid underneath the query section.
Okay, so I tried to rerun the create database. It says database exists. Okay, so how do we then? Okay, so we created a database. So let's see if it'll let us use the database. Okay, so we're now in the database. I don't want to do any of that. All right, so I'll create a table. And we should be able to say show tables. Yeah, we'll see how well that works. Well, that's better. It didn't crash. Apparently, I just can't show databases. Okay. So what do we need? Well, let's come back here and take a quick peek at what we need over here. Okay, so we get rid of that password since everybody knows my password, doesn't matter. Doesn't hurt anything. It's on my local machine. Okay. So in here, he's connecting to the database. He's running this initial, which creates the roles and that kind of stuff. He's using the DB model to kind of start to set things up, but I'm not sure this is necessarily the best way to do it. Okay. Not a big fan of how this kind of moves things around. Doesn't mean I can't be talked into it. Okay, so he's got the config on the database, which matches what we're doing. Although we have changed the database name, right? Hey, look at that. It restarted. Drop table of exists user roles. Drop table of exists roles. Drop table of exists users. So these are SQL commands. Select constraint name, executing. Dropping the tables again. I don't know why. Create table if not exist users. So we now should theoretically have users and IDs and data in here. So if we run show table again over here, we crash it. It doesn't work very well. Oh, no database selected. Okay. Use. No. Good. That's not very useful on my machine. And my guess is that we have a table in here. There. Oh, it's showing HTAT this time. So here's our tables. We now have a roles table with columns and indexes and triggers. And can we click that? Nope. Okay, so apparently my Mac doesn't like it. I may have to reboot. I may have a couple of things running that are causing problems. Let's terminate that one. Maybe that's causing a problem over there. And come back into here. Look at that table. See if it'll pull up. It was showing it for a split second. It was showing it. Well, I wonder if we're only allowing one connection. Because if we're only allowing one connection, let's get everything else shut down. It is possible. I'll try one more time, and we're right at time. So yeah, I'm gonna try rebooting, see if that helps. But my guess is that we now have a database we can connect to and send and receive data from. based on these schemas that are set up. So the SQLize let us set up things and let us do a lot of these little things. So we SQLized, right? It connected to the database, it got the password, it had the host. Yeah, we're not pooling anything, but we set up a user model and user roles. Remember the tables that it created, user models, user roles, admin, stuff like that. We created a user, we created a moderator, we created an admin under the roles. And if we look down here, that's like identical to what we see here. Insert into roles. Okay. We could theoretically through the command line pull up and see this stuff. And Dylan, if yours is working, maybe some point we'll share and look at that and see what's going on in there. Like I said, I probably need a reboot. I've done enough dorking up on my machine, setting this stuff up, which happens, right? And probably just a clean reboot will get me in there and using the tooling correctly. There might be some better MySQL tooling out there. One of the ones I was surprised on, oops, that's not what I wanted. There we go. Was it used to be wired with a whole set of HTML. You know, we're accessing it via localhost 3306. You saw the port, right? And I'm just kind of surprised I didn't see that in here. Of course, there's a lot of things I didn't see in here. Interesting that tool crashed as often as it did. I'm not quite sure what's going on there. Yeah. But it is seeing our local connection, our local instance. It used to be bundled with essentially an HTML page that you could use to connect to things and work on it, kind of like we're seeing here. Man, it lost everything now. So use run. So it is able to connect to it. Show tables. Not a very useful tool.
Yeah. Man, it's just not your day.
It is not. It is not. And like I said, I'm beginning to think that hard reboot is probably the route to go. Yeah, that's the wrong set of pages. Yeah, so that's where we were. All right. So basically, we have it installed. We have a database. MySQL is in place. It is functional. We know that we can set up and create using the SQLize. I don't know enough about SQLize yet to say for sure that what we've got in there is working 100% the way we want. Okay. What we have in our code now, let's get rid of that for the moment. It's okay to shut it down. Oh, we have two of them open. Okay. Ooh, wow. 3, 4. All right, get rid of them all. There we go. But when this is up and running, we should be able to do an apt get, which should fail on this. We tested that before. We were looking at things like API register, API login. How do we get set off, right? How do we pass that data back and forth? I think the roles are too dynamic for what we need. We don't need moderators and admins, not at the level we're at now. We just want somebody to be able to create an account, right? And,
yeah.
You know, so my guess is we're going to have to kind of clean that database up a little bit and work out what some of this is doing. You know, a user to role one-to-many. Well, if we don't have roles, why do we need that, right?
Mm.
We probably don't need either of these because we don't need foreign key user roles to user ID. Okay.
Right.
You know, if we were to drop roles out completely, let's take that down. We don't need any of this, right? We just need the user. We can put this back in. The pooling will help, I think, in some of the things that we do. So we have pool information here. We have the database. We have the dialect. This was authentication, which we didn't really need. And I think, you know, if we don't need the roles, so we don't need to role create anything. What we need to figure out now is how do we use SQLize? And let's see if we get rid of that file since we don't need that. How do we use SQLize to allow us to add a username, email, and password? Right?
Right.
And in addition, we're going to have some other things happening. And this is where we need to get to the next stage on it, I think, which is when they log in, we create a token, we send it to the front end, and that token is what they use. And if you parse the token out, it's nothing real complicated. It's the username info, right? So when it's sent to the back end, we can parse it back out again and say, hey, is this the right person? Somewhere in there, in the login, we want to compare that against the users in the database. Their password should be an encrypted password stored in the database. We don't want to store their password in the wild. So when they register, we need to somehow figure out how to dump it there. When they log in, validate those two. Right? So the password that comes in, we encrypt. We compare that against the encrypted. They should match. And if they do match, then we give them their auth token. And then from that point, anything they do, register shouldn't do much of anything at that point. I mean, they're not going to re-register. They're not going to re-log in at that point. They may log out. But log out from our perspective really just needs to be, we forget the token, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty simple. Just,
yeah.
Just expire the token and make their session just.
And I'm thinking one of the ones I looked into real quick, and we can just use file system, drop a copy of our test JSON. So what I'm thinking is we figure out how to set up register and put the person into the database, right? We figure out how to log in. We then compare it against the database, send back that auth, that token. Once we've got that, then we can test the path of, can we get this JSON object back? That I think is really the core to what we need here. All of those can be tested using, I mean, all of our initial, most likely, in my mind, is going to be Postman. So we take Postman, we pass it to register. What do we do? We pass it to register. What do we do? Just do it over and over again until we get things the way we want them to be. Does that make sense?
Yep. Sounds yeah, I mean, sounds normal to me.
You know, I don't know, like I said, don't know why my machine's glitching on this. I'll reboot, we'll see what happens. There probably are other admin tools for connecting to a MySQL database. I'll look to see if that one continues to fail, if I can find something a little more stable if a reboot doesn't do it. Any other questions, comments, concerns at this point? We haven't got a whole lot done here, but we're heading the right direction. The wire up front end to back end really is the next step. The wire up of the back end API to the front end is the next step after that. That's exactly what we described. These steps, this step is, you know, let's get some of these pieces working in a way that we can start to utilize that front end. We don't have a registration. We don't have a login anywhere in the header or anything like that. So if somebody wanted to start moving forward and create those components and modals and things like that, Don't have a problem with that.
I
That will
added
be-
a bunch of notes to the wire auth front end to back end, I believe.
Cool. Take a peek.
I don't know if they're
Yeah.
correct, but yeah. Just kind
Yeah, you won't need the reactive forms.
okay.
HTTP client's pretty standard stuff. JSON web tokens. What happens is we'll make that login request. It'll come back. We'll grab the token off the object and really just kind of stash it. And one of the things that we'll do from that point forward, once they're logged in, is there's a way with Angular to intercept HTTP calls. So we're going to intercept, and we're going to look for /API. And anywhere we have /API, if we have a token, we're going to just attach it to the header.
Okay.
So when you're logged out, you don't have it, so there's nothing to attach to the header.
Yeah.
Right? When you're logged in, you have it. Anything that goes through /API should have it attached, even logout.
All right.
Make sense?
Yeah.
So yeah,
that was just kind of an outline. I didn't even know what I was
No,
doing.
no.
Just
that's fine. I mean, it's great to talk about this stuff. No, what we're gonna need, I'm envisioning in my head just something really simple like top right, login vertical bar register. Right? I mean, most people can figure out what that means. When you click on register, we open a modal that asks for username, email, password. Right?
Okay.
Those are the three things we're storing, right?
Mm-hmm.
When that's done, we're going to make that HTTP request back to the API, pushing that data for registration. On success, we'll pop something up saying, hey, you registered, everything went right. Now we take them to the login page. Right? If something goes wrong, username was taken, whatever, or maybe we make it really easy and just overwrite. I don't know. Well, overwrite sounds really bad because then if somebody were to re-register on somebody else's name and email, that should bomb out, right?
Yeah, this was storing the web token in local storage, and it was a bit complicated.
Well, web token and local storage is a lot of what we're going to do. Yes.
All right.
Okay. So if we look at these steps that you have in here, do we really need an Angular reactive form? We have material, which has a modal. We can throw the same kind of thing on there. HTTP, we are using Angular's HTTP component to make an HTTP post to the backend. Okay. Node accepts it, create a login form that allows them to enter their email address and password. Same thing. We post it. And I'll show you guys, we'll add these little services in that'll make our lives really easy. If the user is authenticated, create a JSON web token. This is Node on the back end is doing this with a secret key and return it to the Angular client. In Angular, store it in local storage or session storage. Use it to authenticate any future request to the back end. So normally what you'd do is anytime you made an API call that needs authentication, you attach that token to the header.
Okay.
All we have to do is create an interceptor. That interceptor service is really easy to work with. Okay. And that'll do all that for us. From that point, we forget about it. And notice what he said here, create a logout button that simply removes the drop token from local storage or session storage. Okay. And then we send a GET request to the backend saying, hey, we logged out. And the backend invalidates the drop token or removes it from the database. All right. So part of what they're doing is they're taking that jot on the node side when you log in. It creates it. It's dumping it into the database as well as pushing it up. Okay, assuming we're going to save that in the database like that, then one of the things we'll have to change is in our user, we need user, email, password, and
Token.
job. Yeah, token.
Mm.
So
So
that's
we
why I
need to-
hadn't moved on any of this, because I knew you were still trying to build out the back end, and this was kind of amorphous
Well,
still.
You can move on this. No, I think it's actually what you've got here is right on what we need, except for I probably wouldn't use the Angular reactive forms.
Okay.
I mean, you could. I don't think it hurts anything.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever
Um,
built a modal before, so either way, I was gonna have to learn how to do it.
Well, we don't actually have to build a modal. So he's using reactive forms. Let me see what he's doing here. So he's adding form control. And that's a way to do it, but it's really, and personally, in most cases, it's probably overkill.
Okay.
Yeah, so what I would look up is Angular material modal dialog. What you need is a dialog. There's one that even has put some data in,
Nice.
right? Now, you put data in on that field, pick one. Okay, there's your dialog. There's a cancel.
Hmm.
There's an okay.
Yeah, feel free to slap that link in
Oh, I will.
the card and
See,
replace
we chose
the.
frog. That's the data that came back. So when you look at this, oops. Okay, what you have here is this is the HTML here. This is what you're seeing here. So this is the chosen animal, right? This is the TypeScript for it. So this is the component. So there's animal. Okay. You also have this function, this module, open dialog. It uses dialog ref. Okay, so this .dialog.open, which is brought in on the constructor. Okay, which is these three are brought in from Angular Material Dialog. Okay. And you're telling it what component to load. If you look up here, dialog overview example, dialog overview example dialog. Right? Those two line up. Okay. And then what data are we passing it? Well, for registration login, we're probably not passing any data, right? So guess what? We probably don't need that part. Might need a double squiggle. I don't know. We can figure that out. But then you have this other piece that you tie into. Hey, what do we do after we close? Well, we subscribe and do something with that data when it comes back. Right? So when they've entered the username, password, those 2 or 3 fields, whether it's login or registration, in registration, it's going to be 3 fields passed back. In login, it's going to be 2 fields passed back. Then we go to our API service and we say, hey, I want to send this to the back end and do something with it. Right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
in my mind, with this, could you theoretically build out the modals, even if we don't have anything to push and pull data with yet? Right?
Yeah, you just have to
Just console log
Not-
or something like that.
yeah, not send it to the API instead of just
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, it looks pretty easy. I mean,
Okay.
with
And we'll figure the
material.
other pieces out too. Yeah. So I'm going to come in here. I'm going to edit. Take that off. I think reactive forms are a little bit of overkill. The HTTP client is definitely something we're going to use, but I'll show you a much easier pattern than the way they do it. Okay.
All right.
The other one we'll need to look at some point is Angular Interceptor. So actually, let's see if somebody has a really good demo of how to do that. Guides to using Interceptor. Let's take a quick peek there. And what is how to create 10 ways to use. All right. Profiling. No. Authentication. Here we go. Well, that's not very useful. Caching. Caching. We don't want to cache. What was that? Oh. What is right in front of me?
The X is by the email.
So current request, and yeah, that doesn't give us any like what I wanted. Let's go look. Let's go look at this one here. That's medium. I'm only going to get so many times go through it. So let's see what he's got. Interceptors 101. Blah 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 blah. URL blah. Loader. Nope. We will use it for a loader eventually. Converting. Nope. Headers. Headers. Authentication authorization. Set header. Right. We're gonna actually add auth step 1 to it. Okay. And yeah, that's not really useful in terms of showing you an example. So let's do this. Let's do auth example. Somebody's got like this really super simple. There it is. Angular JOT interceptor. HTTP interceptors are added to the request pipeline from the provider section of the app module TS. So HTTP observable environment account JOT interceptor implements HTTP interceptor. We're bringing in this account service, which we may or may not need. So we're intercepting any HTTP request. And next is we push it back out, right? You receive it, we got to modify it and push it back. And we're going to add auth header with JOT if account is logged in request. Okay, so he's getting the account information from the account servers. Okay, so in this case, if you hard refresh your page, you're going to log out, right? Unless your account service specifically goes and looks in the local host, right? So this is really not really too far off. Are they logged in? Do we have a token? Does it start with, now here's where, is this an API URL? So he's looking at an environment API URL. So somewhere in an environment, he's specified how he defines what an API URL is, right? So we might redefine a little bit here. Instead of doing like API register, API login, maybe this is auth register, auth login. So that our APIs for data calls that need JOT tokens could have the /API, right? So we check to see if it's the type we need. So are they logged in and is an API URL? We clone it and we set our bearer token. That easy. And we return it as next.handle, which then forwards it on, and that header has been set. It's that simple. I mean, this is insanely simple. He is defining interceptors. So we have to actually define our interceptors that we're going to use. Okay. And actually, I don't remember seeing that before with the account services, but that's okay. App initializer. So what's this one called? I think this is the JOT interceptor, so it's this one, I'm pretty sure. Okay. I think that's between that and that. That's the core of what we need for interceptors. Okay. They're not that complicated. I've done them a number of times.
Yeah, that's super cool because just how I've done in React is I always had to add the token manually. So sometimes I just like forgot. I was like, why isn't this API route hidden?
Are you using the native fetch in React or are you using Axios?
I use Axios.
Okay, Axios has an interceptor built into it.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Oh,
They can
nice.
do something very similar. I wrote an article on that a while back. Here you go. Axios Interceptor, request, use, config, do something before the request is sent. Response interceptor, so you can intercept it either way, when it's going out or when it's coming in. So what do you think you're going to do in here? You're going to add your authentication, right?
Yeah, take it from local storage or wherever.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's going to look very similar to what we do with the Angular internally. And by internally, I mean peer to here. You're going to clone the request. You're going to add the header. You're going to send the cloned request out.
Awesome. Yeah, I need to write that down. So I'm making something right now, and I think I'm going to use this.
And you probably can find an example of somebody that's used an Axios Interceptor for Java. I would look at something like that. How to refresh JSON web tokens using Axios Interceptor. How to implement Axios Interceptors when it builds an application requiring authentication. That's a DevTO article right there. Project explanation. So here he's bringing in Axios. There's the Axios client. There's your interceptor. If config auth, if they're authorized, so if it's true, get your current access token. If we have a token, add a bearer to the header. Return the config. Otherwise, you reject it out. Pretty much that complicated. Okay. So you have to create it. You have to have some setup for some of those pieces. So here he's creating an Axios client JS. This was the create Axios client under services. So here he's using the create Axios client when we were just looking at, and the auth store. There's his refresh token. There's his base URL. This is where he's getting his token from, right? If he needs to refresh. This might be a little bit of overkill. Get current. He's going to the auth store to get the access token. Yeah. Complicated, huh? So here's registration, login, get profile, and notice he doesn't have to do much. Because he's using Axios, that interceptor is automatic. You don't have to worry about it once it's run. Once that code's in it instantiated. Make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. Makes the request simpler for sure. Yeah, well, before every request, I was like, all right, need to check if I have the token, and then
see, this is probably a little complicated. I mean, this is built for a larger system, but I mean, it's essentially the same thing. I mean, this one's built for refreshing the tokens and things like that too, which that's really complicated. You know, but you can find tons of examples on how to do that. Just find somebody that's got a relatively simple one. You can always add to it later.
Gotcha.
Make sense?
Yep. Awesome.
All right. So we are now pushing an hour and a half. Feel free to create some modals to start working on the header. Part of my thought would be in the front end code. We have a header. So inside the header would be a login register or whatever you want to call it. Just call it login feature. Because registration can be we can assume, let's assume registration is a part of that, right?
All right.
You'll create two shared components, because remember those modals will have their own component, essentially. It's opened by the parent, which in this case is the login component. So it's saying, hey, open these components, they're modals. Takes care of all the modal handling stuff for you from there. Make sense?
A little, yeah. I'll
so
bubble my way through it.
You're going to create three components.
Yeah.
You're going to create the login component, the login modal component, and the registration modal component.
Yeah.
In the code with the login component, you're going to create a login service. Okay. So kind of like we do, oh, we're not doing it yet. We don't have any place. Do we have any place? No, we don't have any services in with ours. So basically you'll have those four, which will be login.component.ts all the way up. And then you'll have login-api.service. .ts. So if you do an ng generate, there's an ng generate for service, it'll go right into the same folder. That way the API handling and the component are all in one place.
Okay.
Okay. If you get really fancy under core services, we'll need an interceptor service. Or a job token handler service, whatever we want to call it. I would just call it interceptor service. Okay.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Not yet.
I'm sure you will. That's fine. That's, I mean, it's part of the learning process, right?
Yeah.
Any comments or concerns as we move forward here?
Nope.
Okay. I will see you guys in a couple days then.
All right, man. Have a good week.
You
That's
too.
good. See ya.